First of all, I'd like to thank AFCEA as well as Mike Black. I know last year some of us you'll see here on the panel, you recognize if you were here last year. We had the ability to do this, and I think our welcome back speaks to some of the good conversation that we had last year. We were able to actually leverage some of that conversation to actually turn it into action into some of our exercises that we had throughout MEF. So what we have going on today is about 7 minutes per each MSC and comm battalion and comm squadron commanders. We'll take about 7 minutes. That'll allow us about 24 minutes for questions and answers, because we really want to get to your questions and not just give you just our initiatives, our opportunities, and our challenges. So I'll open up first, speaking on behalf of MEF, General Gehring, who also spoke here. We've had some of these discussions with him. There are many challenges. Many of you have been here all week talking through them, but we'll try to just describe from a MEF overview lens. I will try to do that here pretty succinctly, and then we'll go from there. And I'll focus really on 4 areas. And the first one, many of you have been aware of our MCEN unification, Marine Corps Enterprise unification for the network. Quick background, we've had a tactical network for a long standing period of time, but the enterprise has a network that's backed by cybersecurity that's robust and a workforce that's 24/7 that has consequences as it relates to cyber all the way up through cybercom. So how do we integrate the two has been the challenge that we've endeavored to do here at MEF. The guidance I gave our staff and what we are moving out on kind of as a baseline is, we know in a high-end fight, in the next fight that we are likely to have, that we will have to be interoperable with our other MEF, 3 MEF, specifically in the Indo-PACOM region, because that's the region we belong to under COCOMs. So how do we integrate our network with 3 MEF has been the focus of our efforts. 3 MEF had a different network. They were primarily on the MCEN already, where 1 MEF had a tactical network. So we've used a series of vignettes in order to get after that. You'll hear some of it from the audience or from the other speakers here on the panel. In Steel Night exercise, in previous exercises with WTI, and then a lot of things in the background on the periphery that are occurring day to day that we are working with 1st Network Battalion. We are working with the Marine Corps Cyber Operations Group to get after unification writ large. Some of the challenges also is that we've had network operation centers that are separate and distinct, supporting each commanding general at our MSCs because they were trying to achieve tempo and make sure that they could get through the exercise day to day. But we are at a different time and place right now as we evolve our thinking and understand the problem set as it relates to PRC and being able to fight together with 3 MEF as stated before. So how do we either consolidate or unify, whether logically or physically, those network operations centers that used to be tactical into an enterprise construct? How do you do that? Because the enterprise folks with the network battalion sit in a different building and location than all of our units that are also separately aligned. That is on Pendleton and Miramar. And then how do you tie in MCI West? Because now you're talking critical infrastructure protection and critical infrastructure items that are also a venue in which adversary can get into your network as well. So we're taking a hard look at that. We have a data center on Pendleton. There's a data center on Miramar. We're trying to find ways to provide unity of effort and get after that. And I'll just leave it there and allow for more questions where I can get into more detail as you require. The second point I'll make is talking about setting the theater. So we've done a great job out here in MEF of grooming Camp Pendleton and all the areas to support exercises over a period of decades. But what have we done in areas overseas to do the same? We've done a great job of getting capabilities like LEO terminals and GEO terminals that we could use. But where's the fiber in places that we are going to likely fight? We have base pedestals at Camp Pendleton and Miramar that we use as the P and pace for some of our exercises, yet we lack the same thing overseas, which constrains us to RF only in a fight. And you can't do that once you're in conflict after moving through competition. So setting the theater right now for us means forward staging capabilities, getting not just RF capabilities and SATCOM capabilities, but also terrestrial and fiber capabilities in choice countries, which makes it not just a military pure coordination mechanism. That is a really whole of government approach in order to make that happen. So that is something that begins at the tactical for us, but traverses all the way to the strategic landscape. Third, modernization, and I talked about SATCOM terminals. We have made a concerted effort to get after SATCOM terminals, specifically in LEO and GEO spaces. Where's our modernization with our mobility solutions that allows VIPs to travel and continue that situational awareness and build their SA and allow first-in capabilities, things that don't preserve the data at rest so that you get around the commercial solutions for classified items, right, and not having encryption and BitLocker and all these robust things on the actual laptop and devices themselves. Where do we get modernization for mobility solutions? Or mobility devices. I would say we are lacking in that right now. It has been a struggle for us to support a lot of our GOs because there hasn't really been an enterprise solution holistically across the Marine Corps that has been developed that is secure and that gives us that agility to be to go at echelon and provide these capabilities, not only to the GOs, but any staff officer, senior staff NCOs to be able to continue that. Another aspect is how we do what we call communications control. Because all of those previously stated items that I alluded to in terms of our NOCs being separate and distinct, we had ComCon relationships that were understood, but now that we have multiple organizations involved in this, how do we do communications control, right? We talk command relationships very well when we talk about commanding and controlling for combat operations typically, but communications has a parallel command relationships, and when you merge multiple organizations, how do you bring that all together so that reporting isn't just going to the FMF commander, but all the way traversing through MAR4 Cyber and Cybercom, as well as not just reporting, but operating on a day-to-day basis to enable command and control. So that needs to be modernized. Some of our processes for procuring and acquisitions needs to be modernized because traditionally our approach to leveraging our capabilities was what we relied on our table of equipment that the Marine Corps issued us. That is a 7-year to 10-year timeline, and by the time we get it, we asked for it 7 to 10 years ago, so when we get it in hand, it is of little utility. So how do we partner with industry? How do we teach our operations folks to engage with industry partners like yourselves so that we can get capabilities faster? Sometimes we use operations and maintenance funds, and sometimes we have to find ways within the POM cycles to persuade others that this investment is worthy enough to take on. And then the last piece, and it underpins all of this, is the whole information management and knowledge management. A long time ago, we didn't have the technological advancements in the late 90s, kind of starting in 2000, where IT started to take off. And before, commanders were struggling to have enough information. The IT community showed up, and now there's overwhelming information, and we can't manage it. So we've had challenges there, and we try to build things like information management officers and teams, and I don't know that we have successfully done that. But layered on top of all of that is all of these things that I previously mentioned. We go through troughs every summer cycle. We move 1/3 of the Marine Corps at minimum every year. You could take any professional organization, any professional football team, and move, send off 1/3 of that and bring in a new 1/3 with organizations that interact with each other at every echelon and scale, and you're going to have a problem on your hands. We are having that same challenge with information management and turning it into knowledge management, because we will gain some lessons learned from any exercise, and 1/3 of those people will leave and a new third shows up and has no clue what happened at that last exercise. So I just highlight that briefly as some of the challenges we are working through. I will stop there and allow those other panelists here to kind of give you some points, and then we'll come back for questions as you see fit. Thank you.
Thanks, Chief. Good morning. First, thank you to AFCEA and the U.S. Naval Institute for bringing this West Conference together to bridge the gap between military and industry from an IT perspective. Without industry, we cannot do what we do down to the warfighter level, where our O plans are going to take us. We need industry to be successful. So I think this is very important that West puts this together, and we have the opportunity to give you our perspective and share ideas about how to make our lives a little bit easier and how to improve communications across the Marine Corps. My name is Colonel Tom Heller. I am the 3rd Marine Air Wing G6. Just some perspective, the 3rd Marine Aircraft Wing is the largest wing in the Marine Corps. It consists of 5 O6 commands, 44 O5 commands, and there is 1 O5 commander who is responsible for providing communication support to all those units, and she's at the end of this table right now. So my number 1 priority is supporting my CG and his intent and the mission of the MAW. My 1 alpha priority is supporting everything Lieutenant Colonel Nelson needs in order to accomplish the mission from the communications perspective. I have 4 things that I just want to talk about as far as how we leverage industry, at least in the 3rd Marine Aircraft Wing. First is what Colonel G already touched on. SATCOM as a managed service. It provides us LEO and GEO options. It gives us that transport diversity that we require when we fight forward. It allows us the opportunity to pick and choose what orbit, what band we want to fight on and when. It also provides us with a high bandwidth and low latency solution that nothing on our TE to date can provide us right now. So that's 1. The second thing that we are incorporating is what we call flyaway kits. They're Cisco routers that have Wi-Fi capability. We see them as a first-in capability. We see them as a CG suite. We see them as squadron DFTs when they go to different places, CONUS or OCONUS. It provides those individuals with 2 network enclaves, unsecure and secure. It provides data, voice, chat, browsing, SVTC capabilities for all those folks that are going to use it. It provides resiliency, redundancy, flexibility. You can put it into a backpack. Marines can carry it onto a plane and go. It blends in with the noise floor as well, which we love. And it also allows for multiple transport options to use with it. You can use fiber, SATCOM, or cellular service. So it has been definitely a game changer within the MAW when we send units out. The third thing that we've tested, but we haven't come up with the exact solution yet, is radio over IP. We tested it during our Steel Night exercise in November into December of 23, but we're still looking at options. So we're open if you have a suggestion or something that we could test out to see what could help us with radio over IP. And then lastly is we're trying to extend Wi-Fi solutions into our hangars and out to the flight line. Why? Because the most important thing for the MAW is readiness and flight hours for our pilots. And a way to do that is to extend those services out. It allows the wrench turners to have their computers out on the flight line or within the hangar and order those parts at that point, as opposed to writing it all down, walking back into the office, getting onto their system. It just speeds up the process. I saw it work in that manner as a battalion commander. I was fortunate enough to have Wi-Fi out where the support company was, the service company was, and those Marines underneath the Humvee working on it, a laptop right next to them, ordering parts in GCSS. So it just sped up the process, the maintenance process, and enabling our equipment to be ready to fight if that situation arises. I'm going to stop right there so I can allow my colleagues to my left to give you their perspective from their respective MSCs or battalions. Thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the sponsors, I'd like to thank you for allowing us to be up here. It's a great opportunity to see a lot of familiar faces out here in the audience, a lot of Blue Diamond alumni out here, a couple of 1-0s and other folks, so it's good to see you all. The Blue Diamond, the Brown House is closed. It is now grass field, or soon to be a grass field, and we've moved into our new CP. How did we do that? We did that through a lot of hard work of many of you who are sitting before us, who made those plans and designed the building, and then we had the opportunity to execute it this past fall. So I'd like to talk to you about a couple of things. One, the challenges and problems that we have or that we're facing, and then how we can solve them. So how I get there is I'll talk about where we've been. So over the last year, 1st Marine Division has participated in several exercises and deployed Marines into real operations or ongoing operations. So our first exercise of the summer last year was Talisman Sabre, where we as a GCE became part of the joint force that 1st Corps was our higher headquarters, and then we worked with our Australian partners. The importance there for us is to understand that everything the Marine Corps does will be part of a joint force and part of a joint fight. To do that, there are other things that need to happen. Interoperability, for example. If I fast forward to our next exercise, or major one, was Still Night. When we did Still Night, we brought together all the elements of the MAGTF, so all of 1st Marine Expeditionary Force. Then we added our Navy brethren down on 32nd Street, and then we also had Air Force counterparts that came to play. Well, I tell you, interoperability is absolutely a challenge. So when you have a sea-going Navy and you have a ground combat force that likes a lot of bandwidth, like those two don't work together well. I'll get more to that at the end. Our next, so in a couple of weeks or so, we're going to head off to Korea and join our ROC Marines and exercise Freedom Shield. Our goal there is to, again, display that interoperability of how we as a joint force, as a GCE, can attach to another MEF. So you have other MEFs. So 3 MEF will be our higher headquarters, and we'll be the GCE for them, and see how that MAGTF comes together with our ROC Marines. All of that, interoperability has to work for us there. The next exercise series that I'll talk about is currently and ongoing right now is our SLTE and MWX down in 29 Palms right now, where you have, again, the entire MAGTF out in 29 Palms doing combined arms and working together and integrating. And then you have McWill and other Marine Corps partners who are bringing new technologies and new ideas that we're testing and validating. Again, interoperability is absolutely essential. So with interoperability, we talked about the joint force that we have to connect to. When I talk about other operations that we're doing throughout the Pacific, we can't forget about our soft counterparts. Like we have to be able to talk to our soft counterparts. That's both U.S. and our partner and allies. And then the coalition writ large. So the regular ground forces, the regular conventional forces, our abilities to be able to interoperate, bring our systems together, whatever our C2 systems or flavors are. When we talk competition to conflict, the things that worry me are how our networks will work together, our C2 tools, C2PC, FATIDs, whichever tool you like to display, and then you look at some of our Army brethren who are experimenting right now during Project Convergence as they think about Project Maven and things like that. So those two, so like what's that future fight going to look like? And along with those become everything in cyber, from cyber defense to offensive cyber, like those are other elements that absolutely we have to pay attention to and make a deliberate effort in ensuring that we have a way forward. And lastly, I'll add to that is how artificial intelligence aids, distracts, or supports us. We absolutely want it to aid us. So how do we use those systems to make us more lethal on the battlefield? The last thing I'll cover is innovation and how we do it. I talked about the interoperability, so as we innovate, and this is where I think industry will absolutely help us be better, the systems have to be interoperable. They have to be expeditionary. Again, I use the analogy of a ground combat force with large bandwidth pipe requirements communicating with ships and disembarking from ships. Like there's a huge issue there that we have to make sure we make sure it works well. systems have to stand alone. I'm all about going to the cloud. I love it. Former MIT Lincoln Lab fellow, former DARPA fellow. Like, I absolutely love technology. I want all the newest and greatest, but if it can't be standalone, power resistant or power sustaining in an expeditionary environment, then we have problems. I'll hit accreditation as my second to last point. Like systems that you bring out to us or tools that you want us to do, we need help with working through the accreditation process and making sure it's interoperable and other services can use it, and we don't spend a lot of bandwidth getting systems accredited as we get it. And then the last one is systems have to work in a contested environment. When you're alone and unafraid and it's dark and it's wet and you got enemies shooting at you, you got to be able to communicate and provide fires, part of the kill chain, part of the kill web, and supporting fires. That's all I have at this time. I'll look forward to any questions that you may have.
All right, thanks, Mike, and thank you everybody for being here. It's great to be back for a second year. You all are what makes this happen. If we don't show up, there is no AFCEA, so thank you. My name is Lieutenant Colonel Tom Cunningham. I'm the first MLG G6. Been in the role now for coming up on 3 years, about to transition out. And I wish I had more time to get through all the items I want to on my little wish list or things to talk about. So I'll just highlight a few. But first, I didn't do this last year. I like pulsing the crowd on this. Who served in or worked with an FSSG? All right. There's still a few out there. So I think I can still talk about this a little bit, not necessarily about COM first, about MAG-TAFRI. For any of you that were around with the Force Service Support Group in early OIF-1 and before that, you had in the MLG a bunch of very siloed functional battalions. Those tactical functions of logistics were married up to a battalion, that was it. We've moved and we are continuing through force design as an MLG to move progressively towards cross-functional, multifunctional battalions that many of you know well as the CLBs. Even those functional battalions that remain, the Engineer Battalion, what was the Landing Support Battalion and is now the Distribution Support Battalion, Medical Battalion, and Dental Battalion, they're still becoming much more cross-functional and integrated at a lower level. You've all heard this before, you know, in other force design literature, at lower units of employment. Lower units of employment. So for our CLBs, that is certainly still happening. Force Design beefed up our combat logistics battalions a little bit there, gave them some more capability. And our units of employment, like the division and the MAW, they're also getting lower. Our combat logistics patrols, our combat logistics companies, they're becoming more robust. Okay, why does that all matter for COM? A few things I'll touch on. I'll start at the tactical edge. One was already mentioned by Lieutenant Colonel Jima. We have tactical radios. We have stuff that operates our portfolio at the tactical edge. We all know spectrum is limited, and especially in some of the countries where we're going to be working with allies and partners, but I still urge, this is more for industry, I urge you to look out there and look for more creative solutions in other parts of the spectrum. Do better on encryption, and figure out how we can use the C, the L-band, Wi-Fi, all these other waveforms and parts of the spectrum to make us operate a little bit better. I was thinking about not throwing the term out there. We've heard the term comm foraging out there lately. That is not the right answer. We need to do better before that becomes anything remotely near a thing. But just because it's not a great idea right now doesn't mean it's impossible, or we shouldn't continue to explore that. So please help us out with that. Our combat logistics patrols and all those lower units of employment that are going to be operating at the tactical edge, supporting the MAW and the division and the rest of the MAGTAF, we're going to need it. All right. Kind of accompanying that, another thing we're exploring down at the MLG, it's been mostly within the explosive ordnance disposal, littoral explosive ordnance neutralization platoon, has been a new C2 user interface. And I know the other elements of the MAGTAF here are also exploring this. Right now, there's no material solution going forward. There's just kind of a recognition that our current solution of C2 PC needs to evolve. Perhaps even there needs to be something more revolutionary. Many of you have worked with Tactical Assault Kit. I'm sure I can get some head nods in the crowd there. I saw J.R. Glenn out here earlier. That may or may not be the way forward, but we are definitely interested as an MLG in figuring out how we can interface better with the MAGTAF when it comes to that stuff. We're also interested in it as a true log cop, which I would argue we've never fully had as an MLG. We've got to figure out how to have a better logistics common operating picture, all the way from that tactical edge where you're doing those free-form text-based reports, pre-formatted reports, all the way up to the enterprise level, which I'll come back to here in just a second. We've had challenges, most recently all of you have experienced with our VPN. Many of you, who would still use work from home if you had to in a pinch, can't do that right now. We have operational units that are going out and doing things like contracting in places where there's no enterprise infrastructure. It doesn't make sense to take a TAC lane. It doesn't make sense to take all the infrastructures that would put us behind the transport boundaries that we would prefer. So we really do need some help there in figuring out a better VPN solution, I would say, or even if it's just on the margins, ways for us to enable our enablers like contractors who are going to be going out to host nation partner countries and doing things at the very down and dirty nitty gritty level. Got to figure out how to do that a little bit better. Moving up towards the enterprise level, we've got to start moving things, figuring out how to make cross-domain solutions better. We cannot have our logistics information relatively out in the clear. IL5, Impact Level 5, and CUI, it's just not going to cut it when it comes to our adversary. So for industry, keep working on those cross-domain solutions, figure out how to more seamlessly allow the Marine Logistics Group to transfer its information, its logistics information, across all tactical functions up to the high side, keep it there, and be able to seamlessly exchange it. That's a huge, huge help to us. Echo what Lieutenant Colonel Anthony said, as we move up to higher echelons of command and the bigger picture and the operational level of war, operational level logistics has been a hard problem that we've been working on in my entire tenure here. Previous CG and the current CG, General Niebel, are definitely wanting to get after that and setting the theater. We need enterprise logistics information systems that do better and talk to each other better. Some of the solutions are out there, and Marines, if you give them enough time and focus them enough, they could probably figure them out on their own. But there's a problem when I can't talk GCSS Army to GCSS Marine Corps, and I have to ask a Marine NCO or a warrant officer or whatever to focus a lot of time in figuring out how to make those two talk with our existing products and services. Some of our partners, like I said, I try not to name too many vendor names here, but we work a lot with Microsoft. They have the tools out there to make it happen. It's the time and somebody else to help us out there in industry to put the manpower behind it and make those solutions a little more effective so that we can talk not just as a Marine Corps enterprise, but talk across the joint force and eventually, aspirationally, with our coalition partners, host nation partners out there. We have to be able to get logistics to the point of need faster, much faster and much more seamlessly. In the MLG, we've also worked as material solutions so far to make that a reality. We have a sustainment web out there. We are participating in the Global Pre-Positioning Network, whatever that does become. Some of you probably saw the functional concept document that was just released. But again, the technology solutions behind it have to follow and help those processes. And if I can clarify for you any more after this how to make that happen, I'd be happy to do that. Like I said, I could talk about many more things. Thank you, everybody, for showing up, and I look forward to the rest of the panel. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. My name is Lieutenant Colonel Rob Doss. I'm the CEO of 9th Com Battalion. First, as everyone else on the panel, I'd like to offer a special thanks to AFCEA, the Naval Institute, as well as industry for being here today and making this event what it is. If I could, before I start, stealing a note from Lieutenant Colonel Cunningham's book, could I just get an indication of who's served in or around a Com Battalion before? Okay. Until yesterday, the Com Battalion was likely the very same organization that many of you remember in terms of structure and equipping. Yesterday, we had something very important happen for us. We got the first of a number of increments of adjustments that we're seeking to make to the organization to make it lighter, faster, and more agile. Those were approved yesterday, and we're going to move out. So it's a good news story for us. We're excited about it, and it is exactly in line with what we're trying to do at 9th Communication Battalion. For those that don't know, 9th Com Battalion is a just under 1,300 Marine organization structured for 7 companies, currently organized along the lines of 6. We can enable communications packages all the way up to a 3-star level joint task force, down to a 2 Marine EAB, or Expeditionary Advanced Base. In summary, what I would like for you to take away, if anything else, 9th Com Battalion is the organization that underpins one MEF from a communications perspective. Chances are if one MEF is operating or exercising anywhere, 9th Com Battalion is either there or supporting it from afar. That's who we are. Our primary objective as an organization, which I think that many in industry can help us with this, is that we're looking to bring agility back to what we all know and understand are your traditional big box communications organizations. We can go faster, we can get lighter, and we're working aggressively to do so. Some ways that we're doing that is by modernizing our units of action. I mentioned that we can enable up to a 3-star level joint task force, all the way down through the use of something we're calling Expeditionary Communications Teams, or ECTs, to enable some of the very concepts that you're seeing come out in the service during force design. In addition, internal to the formation, we're working aggressively to rebuild where we needed to and sustain where we already have it, a high-end level of combat readiness. We know that our responsibility is to make good on our promise to be most ready when the nation's least ready, and 9th Com Battalion will be ready. The final piece that we're working is continuing our aggressive pursuit of incremental change with the assistance of our occupational field, our fantastic MEF staff, as well as MAR4PAC, to get lighter and faster. As I mentioned yesterday, some of those changes took effect just yesterday, and we will continue to move out on that. We've got our next push in that direction coming shortly, and we're excited about what that presents for the battalion. I'll yield the rest of my time to Lieutenant Colonel Nelson to talk about the comm squadron.
Hey, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. They saved the best for last, and a friendly jab at my 1st Marine Division brothers sitting here. 3rd MAW is the hammer of the MEF. Just remember that. So hi, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I am Lieutenant Colonel Angie Nelson, and I command Comm Squadron 38. The little engine that could, the unit that punches above its weight class. We're TO'd at about 500. On a good day, I'm setting at about 330 Marines that support all the units in the MAW that Colonel Cunningham mentioned there. Something that I've been thinking about for a few years, and it was before I took command because I had the privilege of being the Information Dominance Team Lead for General Van Herk at Northcom. Something that we like to throw around in the new buzzword bingo, right? JADC2, any sensor, any shooter. But have you ever paused to think about that space between any sensor, any shooter? Well, that space is the comm battalion. It's the comm squadrons. It's whatever your service comm unit is. It's that network. It's that transport that the comm units provide. So as I came into comm squadron and took command a little over a year and a half ago, that was at the forefront of what I wanted to do. And then realizing that I had the opportunity to work for 2 amazing colonels at the Marine Air Control Group, which is the C2 unit for a Marine Air Wing. They gave me the leeway to do what I needed to do to make that work. So immediately set about taking the comm squadron and turning it from this big lumbering organization that, you know, would support an airfield, you know, like where the DFACs were. We were all driving around in Nissan trucks and living the good life, to a unit that could shoot, move, and communicate. To do that, I reorganized our 3 companies into mission profiles that could support a radar team from any level, whether it be a large radar all the way down to a small team that was not using those type of sensors. So to do that, we've partnered with industry, and we've partnered with our sister services, the Air Force. We've partnered with the Joint Staff J81. We've borrowed and stealed some of their equipment that they already have to show the Marine Corps that if we're going to get after this, you got to think about what we're doing as communicators. So to me, communications need to be looked at from here forward as the right data at the right place at the right time. So that has been the focus of effort at the Comm Squadron. But at the end of the day, it's making sure that aircraft can fly, aircraft are ready, and they're taken care of. So for our industry partners, if you're looking to come talk to me about things that you could help me out with, if it can't fit in the back of an Osprey or a C-130, I don't want it. If you field me a piece of equipment that takes a 7-ton to move, I can't use it. So those are the things that we've been getting after. I would challenge the rest of the folks within IMEF. Every time Project Convergence comes to town, Comm Squadron has taken part. And I'm proud to say the Marine Corps took that exercise over last year, and everybody wanted to come see the MAOC. So we're out there right now supporting it. The Navy has Project Overmatch, the Air Force has ABMS, and the Army has Project Overmatch. The Marine Corps just got on board and pushing forward with Project Dynamis and realizing we have to be a part of this and we have to participate. So we're that little tactical unit that's willing to do that kind of stuff. So I hit a couple of things, what we did, what we got after, my thought process. But at the end of the day, as a commander, I know it's the Marines that make it happen, and the Marines are motivated. If we provide them the training and we put the equipment in their hands, they will make amazing things happen. So that, as a commander, is always in the back of my brain. Even when I'm talking about all this modernization, it's that Marine on the ground. So I'll pause there so that we can get to the questions and the heart of what we're here to do. Thank you for having us, AFCEA. This is an awesome opportunity for us.
Okay, we've heard from our panelists, and now the second, save the best for last, which are your questions that we are interested in answering. So please come up, ask your questions, and we will do our best to answer them. If you, yeah, okay.
Hello, Kelly McConnell. I currently work for Booz Allen. I was a former Marine Intel officer and dabbled in cyber just a little bit. My question to you is, the previous panel talked about being willing to use prototypes in operations rather than testing and making sure it's 100% good to go before you're willing to use it. I would be interested in any of your thoughts on your willingness to use prototypes and kind of what that means to you from an ability to get product to the warfighter faster.
I'll start off and then I'll turn it over to kind of the rest of the panel here. But so I'm a big believer and we'll open for conversation, but the spiral development has to occur. A lot of times what we are getting right now goes, because of the long lead time previously mentioned in the POM process, by the time we get it and all the prototyping and trying to make it perfect comes out to us, it becomes of little utility or it gets partially used. There were HF capabilities that we've been fielded before where we didn't use some of the chat capability because it was not user friendly, so to speak. And there are other equipment sets that we get that are kind of like that. So I would say to me it seems to make logical sense that spiral development, getting it in our hands, letting us play with it, let us give the feedback, only builds efficiencies along the way. We don't need a lot of kit in terms of capacity, but we need capability to test, throughout. And I would say it's not just from an IT perspective. The grunts do this all the time. The infantrymen get fielded, backpacks that they carry, and some of the innovative ways that the backpacks have become smaller at the time. And more of utility for those Marines came through spiral development. So we do it in other subcultures in the Marine Corps and other MOSs, but a lot of times the IT has kind of lagged in spiral development ideas. I'll turn it over to the panel to see if they have any other ideas on this.
I'm all about it. If you got something you want me to test, I'm all about it, and I'll prototype it and I'll get it into the hands of the Marines. That's actually how we've ended up with quite a bit of the capability in the Comm Squadron over the last year and a half, is we were willing to work with the Air Force and other folks that believe in iteration and got that stuff into our hands, and we're like on like the third or fourth different version, and you just keep increasing the capability. As IT folks, I think we're naturally innovators. It's getting folks that think that the perfect product is going to come out the first time. That's why we end up not getting something for 7 or 8 years, because they're waiting for the perfect product. It's getting our users, it's getting those operators to understand it's not perfect here, but if you take this version, in a couple of weeks, couple of months, I can have those bugs worked out for you.
Another thing I would offer along those lines is we all talk to our counterparts on the East Coast and overseas. The likelihood of your solution getting out into as many hands as possible can be magnified by getting into all 3 MLGs. I'll just stick to MLGs. I would say that's better. I definitely talk to my counterpart, and if you have the ask coming from more than one MLG up to the institution, be it through the capabilities development process or some other means, that's good. So.
From the Blue Diamond standpoint, yes, we're willing to test and validate and take prototypes. The vignette I'll offer you is Victor 3.5 recently returned from their deployment. So the group of Marines who did that deployment, most of them are going to off cycle, and then you're going to ramp up. So like they're in their ramp up phase. So if you can give me that prototype now, I'll absolutely give it to them so that they can work up with that piece of equipment, with that technology, and then use it on their deployment, which will give you both, work up feedback, deployment feedback, and then post-op feedback. So yes, we're willing to do it as an example.
The last thing I'll touch on in this is, in terms of usage, the things, and you ask any of the panelists, they see it, you see it out there at multiple units. The items that are getting used the most have gone through that spiral development process and were in the hands of Marines before being fielded at scale, right? A lot of our COT solutions are exactly that, as opposed to what we've been getting as our table of equipment issued from the institution after years of trying to make it perfect. And so just from a usage standpoint, it's what we see day to day actually gets used. Thanks for the question. Any others?
Good morning. I'm Mike Berrigan with Alexandria Insights. How much are you using Starlink, Starshield, and does that have much of a future for
Yes.
MEF?
Yeah, so I'll turn it over to the panel, but I will keep it vendor agnostic. We are exploring multiple capabilities from multiple vendors, but PLEO is something that I know across the MEF, and that is the space that the vendor you mentioned is primarily working in. Gets used across the MEF to support multiple exercises, and they can speak to multiple examples along the way.
Yes.
Multi-orbit, multi-constellation, low latency, high bandwidth.
That contested environment that I mentioned during my earlier talk, I absolutely need diversity of spectrum, diversity of waveform, diversity of everything. So I want it all.
As a community, we're becoming more of maneuverists, and we have to have the capacity to maneuver in electromagnetic spectrum. Solutions like the one that you mentioned, amongst many, are options on the table.
And what makes it attractive as a solution from the vendor is it offsets our gaps in our current existing table of equipment. The other thing that makes it effective is it doesn't take a whole lot of training to operate. And I think that is a big factor in expanding the operators that can actually employ that equipment. Many of these things are many of the COT solutions that you industry are providing to us are becoming more user-enabled, user-effective, user-friendly. So when we get that, I think it now changes the circumstance in terms of back to the usage process, right? We're having questions, internal conversations about our school pipeline and our training pipeline, because our training pipeline is primarily geared to the equipment we've been fielded that took so many years to get to. But yet when those operators we are training get through school or at school, they also go home to their smartphone or their very simple device at home that's very easy to operate and doesn't take a whole lot of training inherent to understand. So that's what I'll provide. Do you have a follow-on?
I think also when you're looking at solutions, it's especially helpful when we develop products that enable multidisciplinary communicators to operate. More now than ever, it's important that our communicators understand how to operate across the spectrum of the various disciplines that we have. And when you develop a solution, if it's simple and easier to operate, it doesn't require many months of training, all the more likely that it can be employed at the forward edge.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for the questions.
Hi, my name is Catherine Carter. I'm from Tritus, and we are the original CSFC solution. So we work in the realm of data encryption, and data is so key when it comes to, protecting that data, getting access to that data in real time. Where do you see the importance of protecting your data, and also the role in where the data lies on whether it's the thick on the tactical edge versus in the cloud and with a thin client?
I'll open it up to you all first, and then I'll circle back.
I'll start. So I need data to be available. If I have a battalion maneuvering across the battlefield, I need that battalion to own its data and have its data. I'm okay with it going to the cloud from time to time, but that battalion needs to be independently supported and have access to that data.
I'm a little bit different because of the joint nature of what we do at the air control group, and I've got to be able to get that data multiple places. So.
Okay, thank you.
Before, I'll just add in, so right now, the general concept that we've been wrestling with is, and I'll just say it, it's the contention between reach back and local services. We need both, and we need the technology that makes it so that we don't have to do the engineering to allow both, which simplifies our problem set. That's really what we are wrestling with right now. Domain controllers can come offline, and then when they are reestablished, they can interact with each other and they can exchange the information and bring currency on both sides. But that's something that we wrestle with day to day, and if it is not something that's already pre-engineered, we end up having to do the configurations and the planning to make that work. I don't know if that gets at your question.
It does, thank you.
Good morning, my name is Scott Tatum. I work for Intelsat, and I want to say thank you all for being here, because just like AFCEA and Naval Institute, without you guys, this wouldn't be possible either. So my first question is, well, actually, my only question is, you talked about using O&M funds for trying out new technologies, buying stuff that you feel like is relevant to today's time versus waiting for those development timelines from your SysCom counterparts and other groups within the Marine Corps. Do you feel like you're restricted in any way to doing those type of acquisitions, or do you feel like you have the freedom to go out and procure things that are relevant to you today?
So I'll start off, and please chime in. From a MEF perspective, what I've seen, I saw the same. I used to sit in the same seat here as Lieutenant Colonel Anthony as well at the division in various units. I think we've been fortunate money-wise over the recent years, and I don't know if some of that has been because coming off the wars we've been in, we've had OCO money or contingency money that is eventually going to dry up. But I think we've been lucky. I think the community has been smart enough to levy requirements to fill the gaps, and it has paired with opportunity, which as the money has been available for us to do it. When industry has shown up, and it's the approach I think that has been very key to this. A lot of the vendors that do it right, I believe, show up with capabilities that aren't billing us for it and allow us to demonstrate it in exercises and operations. And then it becomes attractive We bring senior leaders to come take a look at it, and it proves the concept for itself and writes it develops the requirement for the need, right? Just as a capability to grow capacity with that. It helps us build the story. We produce storyboards. We brief it at headquarters, Marine Corps, and service level, and then O&M funds are usually enacted to purchase said product. So I think you've had luck with opportunity in terms of funding. I don't know that will always be on the table in terms of funding, but right now our community is challenging others to prove what else we should be spending the money on other than those things that are enabling command and control. And you're seeing a shift away from traditional, pure kinetic purchases to IT, because we recognize that you can't deploy the force if your cyber apparatus and your operational apparatus can't leave the port, is under threat or vulnerable for manipulation to even get into that kinetic fight that you desire to engage in. I'll turn it over for any other comments.
I'll also just piggyback off of what Colonel G is saying. As far as being allowed the money to procure these capabilities, for the most part, a lot of us have the foresight of when it's coming out, when it's going to be available, to plan for it. However, if you could demonstrate that capability in person or via a placemat to your boss in the face of a need, and you can show the impact and how it's going to support the units, it's much easier to get funding reallocated to that asset or that equipment set, as opposed to waiting to a calendar year deficiency, which there's usually money at the end of the year as well, where you can build get the quote, you can get the IT pras in, and it's ready to go. So when your G8 or whoever your money person is says, hey, I got X amount of money ready to go, who's got all this stuff, who can spend it tomorrow? And you want to be the first one with your hand up so you can get that equipment set. But for the most part, you do have to plan it out. But again, if you could demonstrate the capability in the face of a need, it makes it that much easier to shift funds, at least from my seat and where I'm sitting today.
I'm so motivated. Good morning. First, I want to thank you for all that you do, because if you can't communicate, you can't move and shoot. So I've been a long-time communicator. I'm Tracy Hines. I'm currently stationed at U.S. Space Command as Deputy J3. Before then, I was the Director of Enterprise Networks at OpNav. And this is when I heard about an amazing initiative that the Marines were doing. It was called the Marine Corps Software Factory, where the Marines were actually coding and really making things happen. Can you just speak to what that has yielded? Because I think that is a great news story.
Ma'am, I think Charlie Bach is in the audience. Charlie Bach, Lieutenant Colonel Charlie Bach, where are you? Oh, okay, he left.
Conveniently gone.
Yeah. Ma'am, I'll start with the Software Factory. So an example of one of their most recent ones is MARSOC asked for, or they're currently using a spectrum system to see what the noise floor is. So MARSOC went to the Software Center and asked them, hey, can you build an app or help us with getting that service to a lower level, so Marines walking around. So they built an app that goes on TAC that allows you to see the noise floor on your device and communicate. So I think that's where the Software Factory is doing greatness for the Marine Corps, ma'am. Like small wins, small gains, short times, like 3 weeks of testing, validation, and then going back out. So that's their. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Any others? Ma'am, I'll add in. So long as we do it right? Like, I didn't understand the software factor and where we were trying to go as a Marine Corps until I got the brief from Charlie Bach and others. And the unique thing that I think they spelled out well was where do we have the threshold, right? So our software factor isn't trying to replace Microsoft Office 365 type of an application, right? And so if we do it at the right level and we are creating something that is a war-fighting application that we need, right, at the right level, to be able to implement that, to be able to accredit it in-house because they're building that as part of the process. That's something that we don't want regionalized to have to go through our information security managers to try to put the burden on us. I think that centralized location partnered with the Army and others so joint solutions can come of this. I think it is healthy with where we're going. It's exciting to see it coming along. Another aspect of this is, to be honest, and I have children, my son is interested in coding, right? You have, it can attract a workforce in the Marine Corps in terms of recruiting to want to do these types of things. Because we've had some traditional MOSs that have been around the Marine Corps for a long time, some that have come and gone, but coding has been away from us for quite a while. And I know you have, plenty of youth that are interested in computer sciences and software development and those things. And if we can attract the right type of people, because they already have to have the intellect to do that, I think we're going in the right direction and can benefit from it. But thanks for the question, man.
Can I spin off that for a second, sir, just while you're getting on the the points of interest and stuff like this? This is for industry and for the Marines. Not trying to be too preachy here, but there is such a thing as excessive credentialism. However, I would say one of the good motivators I've had and success I've had with my Marines is getting them to go ahead and get those credentials that a lot of these, it's usually the larger vendors offer for their products and services. It's our challenge on the active duty side to retain those Marines once they get those certifications or whatever it is, but they're often hard, and Marines being Marines, they want to go get them. So for industry, continue to develop that ecosystem that draws us in to whatever it is you're producing. That's one way you can do it, is get Marines to go get those creds. We'll make sure we keep them in the Marine Corps. You still get the side benefit of allowing yourself, basically an in to get your products and services, some ears and eyes. Hopefully that helps a little bit.
That's a great question, man. Thank you. Sir.
Good morning, everyone. Clay Coppernall with Class Government. So it seems like a common theme across the board is contested comms, spectrum warfare. With the traditional war being fought primarily on SIPR, it feels like a lot of that is transitioning to more of a coalition-centric type deployment. What is the Marine Corps doing right now to promote things such as secure but unclassified network operations so you can ensure interoperability with coalition partners, whether it's via ROIP solutions, VoIP solutions, or having access to that data, whether it's federated or unfederated?
Great question. I will say, specifically, I'll stay in my lane here with one MEF, but I'll also talk to your question, coming from 3MEF as well. It is a challenge, and it is not just the Marine Corps grappling with it. I think across the Joint Force, and now Indo-PACOM is taking a lead effort with the Indo-PACOM mission network. We're trying to get after that. I know from a regional, it's probably not the right answer for a regional approach to try to resolve this or find mechanisms to do this. This is probably going to be more of an enterprise approach to try to get after if we want a robust coalition network architecture. I know we have tried to leverage what has been offered. Out in 3MEF, they use what they call the multinational MINIS terminals, the multinational information sharing terminals. There are some who are doing, there are two issues. There's one, which is the third enclave, which is Centrix, right, and coalition sharing. And then there's the encryption. Those two have been central to challenges that we are trying to get after. And there are all sorts of vendors who've come along to try to help us, but I don't think we've settled on standardization across the Marine Corps. So there are a lot of disparate efforts that are going on. But this speaks to kind of, like I said at the outset, partnering with 3MEF to figure out where we're going and conduct some rehearsals with something that, if industry could provide to make it real in the exercises. I think we can showcase that just like we do in other things with, you've mentioned certain vendors that have gained us capability. which everybody is living off of now, right? But that is a gap that we have that, if it could be demonstrated in a exercise space across 2 of the MEFs, I think it would be something that that will take off. I think the Joint Force would adopt it, and I think even if, at minimum, if it federates with a Joint Force solution, then that is good enough to fight off. Does that answer the question?
Yes, sir.
Any others on?
Like Lieutenant Colonel Anthony, I also had the opportunity to do a fellowship over at DARPA, and I would say for the economies of scale end of that, it does take quite a bit of money to develop what you're talking about. Secure handhelds and assured resilient, I can't remember the E, but DARPA Share program comes to mind as being a good example of what you're talking about, or where they're trying to go more broadly. Their Mosaic warfare portfolio is where I think your question's going. And again, if you want to leverage scale and be able to get some money put towards development of these type solutions, I would recommend going to them, or at least exploring what they're soliciting for, because they often use tactical units at the Marine Corps, and 75th Rangers I know gets used a lot to do exactly what you're talking about.
Hey, Clay, great question, and I think the point you highlight here is this is a complex problem, and it's complex at many levels. So as I send battalions out, not necessarily me, but the division sends battalions out to do interoperability with partner nations, the real who owns that responsibility becomes the COCOMs. So when you look at it, there's a difference in each COCOM. I'm more familiar with the CENTCOM portfolio and their MPE environment, doing that, which is vastly different than the PACOM environment and doing it. So I think that challenge exists at all levels, and I don't think it's an easy answer. The Marine Corps current tool that the Marine Corps currently has is the Mini SEC. It has worked well for us throughout the Pacific and some of our partners that we're working with. But I think that's a growth industry, if you want my opinion, because as Secretary Mattis put it, we won't do it alone. We can't do it alone. So you're going to have that. And then I think you have the language barriers. There's a cost barrier. There's so many challenges there. So it's a great question. I think it's one that we live every day as we move throughout partner operations.
Thank you.
Any others? Okay, so I think I'm getting the sign for time, but thank you again to those who came out from industry, those Marines who we served with, from around the globe here. Very great questions. I think it gives us some things to take back, but for me and for the One MEF team, we want to do what is actionable. So this is the start as a discussion. But the next step is, between now and the next FC, where can we get some wins and actually demonstrate capability that this forum provided as a catalyst for change and a catalyst for advancement in the IT realm. So thank you again for your time on behalf of One.